The structure tells you where to go, what to do, and how to do it. The motivation gets you started, and the discipline is what keeps you following the path and running the play, as we say, sticking to the script the way that you're supposed to. So, number one, what do you care about enough to get disciplined and follow the disciplines that'll be given to you? Number two, what can be your motivation to get started? That can be something that usually maybe some form of emotional triggering, whatever gets you started is fine. And then number three, what structure are you going to plug yourself into such that as long as you follow that structure, you are going to get the desired outcome?
Dre, it is such a pleasure to have you on. I've been following your content for a long time, and you're not only inspirational, but you talk the talk and walk the walk. And we were just talking before I started recording, and there's so many coaches that coach because they can't do. And you're one of the few that does it all, and you help people be their best selves. So really awesome to have you.
Well, I really appreciate it, Lawrence. Hopefully I can live up to that billing in this conversation.
Dre, can you just give a little, 20,000-foot view of who you are and what you're about, just to give a bit of context before we start for people listening?
Sure. Come from the city of Philadelphia, now based in South Florida. Always into sports growing up. Got into basketball kind of late as a teenager, 14 years old, barely played in high school, walked on to play college ball, then grinded and hustled my way into playing pro ball, what became a 9-year professional career overseas from the United States, that is. And then at the same time, started publishing videos on this new website called YouTube. And that's where I started to build my brand. And that was, first of all, to teaching basketball players. Then they started asking about mindset. So I started talking about the mindset pieces that I learned in sports. And then people who didn't play sports started seeing those and saying, hey, this stuff applies off the court as well. And that's how I knew what my next move would be after sports, is that I could take the sports, the mental stuff that works in sports, and teach it to people who don't play sports. And that's what I started doing in 2015 when I stopped playing. And for the last 10 years, that's what I've been doing full time. So my company and my brand, the whole thing is called Work on Your Game. And it's all about taking the things that help athletes reach the top of the game and teaching it to everyone how to get to the top of their game, because there's a lot of similarities.
I think that's what's so great about what you're doing is when I look at a lot of former athletes that are really successful in whatever career they chose after sports, they've taken a lot of the principles with them. But then on the flip side of the coin, you have so many people that, had these great careers and then they're completely lost once it's all over. And a lot of people, I've realized now I'm a bit older and wiser, hopefully, it's not how much money you make as an athlete when you're young that enables you to, that's going to be indicative of your success when you're not playing professionally. I think because, Mike Tyson's the classic example, right? He made several hundred million. And then I think when the Hangover movie came out, that was like, he was completely broke. And then he's kind of rebuilt himself since then. It's such an awesome story. But it's so difficult, I think, for young people. You get all this, whether you get the fame, that's one thing, but that complicates it. But you get all this money at a young age. And I don't know about you, but most professional athletes don't know much about handling money. And it's two very different skills, making money and then keeping money. So many people, even if they make a lot of money in their professional career, when, they're still relatively young when they retire. And then there's some really sad stories out there. And I come from the combat sports world, and especially when you put head trauma and all the negative effects of years of cutting weight and things like that, you see these really sad stories, and it really breaks my heart.
Yeah, definitely. And everything you said, I co-sign it. So when it comes to the athletes after sports, not all of them have had time to really focus on anything other than sports. And especially if they knew they wanted to play a sport from a very young age. So let's just say I've been playing since I was 5 years old instead of 14.
Yeah.
And let's say I was so good that I was #1 NBA draft pick. Well, I never would have been thinking about, do I want to start a business or write books or be a professional speaker? I wouldn't have cared about that stuff because I had a same contract as LeBron James. Why do I care about any of those other things? I'm just thinking about playing sports. But me, because of the background that I had to consider other things because there was no guarantee I was even going to get a chance from the beginning to even get a shot at playing. And then when it comes to the money aspect, that's definitely a thing. In the United States, there's no financial education in school. I mean, you had to take art class, history class, gym class, but there's no class for learning anything about personal finance. And that's not just for the athletes. It's for the everyday person who's making an average salary. They don't teach that at all to anybody. So there's a lot of things. And there was something else you mentioned there that I forgot, but we'll come back to it. But there's a lot of things that kind of lead people into what they end up becoming. I think my personal circumstances led me in certain directions. And then as I've always been a sponge for information and a sponge for knowledge and growth, I've always had the ability also to understand it and then be able to give it back. And which is kind of what led us to have this conversation. I can take the things I understand and I can explain it to somebody else, even if they never even thought about it. That's I believe, a gift of mine on one level, but it's also something I've honed into a skill.
And that's also cool. I think, if I'm not mistaken, your first book was teaching people how to play basketball abroad, right? Because it's not if you're from the US and you've never traveled, you don't really know the options and the possibilities. But I come from England, so we don't have too much basketball in England, so I'm not super familiar.
Right.
But I do know that there's a very lucrative path to playing in Europe. Is that correct? If you're an American pro player?
For playing ball overseas, yeah, there's a wide range because a very big space. So most Americans look at basketball, they see the Lakers and the Knicks and the NBA, and if you don't make it to the NBA, then that's pretty much it. But there's a whole other world of basketball players who maybe you saw them play in college and then you don't hear from them for 5 years. They've been over in Europe playing, and most Americans, we are generally aware that there's basketball over there, but we don't watch it. It doesn't come on TV. So you could be a superstar over there and then you come home to America and nobody knows you. So it's almost like you live in two different worlds. So yes, there is space to play ball professionally, which means you're drawing a salary, even if you're not playing on TV in the USA.
Right, exactly. You started playing, I guess, would you say relatively late compared to other professionals?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know much about Philadelphia. I know, obviously, Rocky's story is set there, and it's got a real lineage, blue collar, like professional boxing, and now professional mixed martial arts. There's a real hub in Philly.
Yeah.
It's known as like a tough fight city.
Yes.
What was your youth like growing up there in terms of just when you were young? Were you exposed to? Obviously, now you've worked so much on your mind. Did you know as a youth growing up in Philadelphia there was all these options out there, or did you have to kind of really work on yourself and find out what's out there? Because I know you've talked about when you were young, you kind of struggle with confidence and things like that. Like, I feel like almost every young person does.
Yeah. So growing up, no, I didn't know there were at least the kind of stuff that we're doing now. Well, first of all, we didn't know this was coming. So I was born in 1982. So my growing up years is the 1990s. Mm-hmm. So of course we had computers by that point and a little bit of the internet. This is when we had to dial up. You had to unplug the phone line to get on the computer. That's the internet world that I started in. And none of us knew social media was coming. We didn't know we'd be on Zoom having conversations with people around the world literally instantaneously. And social media, all of that. As far as the wider world of anything, business, sports, or anything else, all we knew was television. Because for the most part, the internet was there, but it wasn't nearly as robust. So for the most part, you wanted to know what was going on somewhere that wasn't where you were. You watched TV. So movies, TV shows, magazines, things like that. That's where you saw it. So I knew there were places like, California, Miami, et cetera. I knew I wanted to go to Miami because I heard it had really nice weather. I said, why don't I just live there? I mean, I want to be an athlete and I want to play sports. I want to be a business owner. So I don't need to live any particular place. I didn't know the internet was going to be the internet, but if I can pick where I live, why not just go there? I like warm weather. So I'm here. As far as the sports go, only thing that I knew was, again, TV. So you got football, basketball, baseball, hockey coming on television. And I started when I was, like I said, 14 years of age. So most of the kids were way better than me when I started playing at my age bracket. And probably around the time I was 16, I thought maybe I can try to go pro here. Not because I had any tangible results, Lawrence, that said I was going to make it. I didn't have anything. I had no results. I wasn't even on my high school team at this point. But I figured if I'm going to dedicate myself to something, at least let it be something that I enjoy and something that I think I can get better at. And that was my theory for why I pursued basketball. And as far as the wider world, there wasn't really a strong strategy or plan for how I was going to make it in basketball. I just happened to, every time I came across something, I took advantage of it. So when I finally got access to an indoor gym, my freshman year of college, I just started using it as much as I could. Even in the off season, school year was over, but I would just go up to the campus and work on my game. That's how I randomly met a guy who recruited me to my next school. And that's where I ended up playing, was a school called Penn State Altoona, which is a Division III college in Pennsylvania. And he recruited me because he saw me walking around campus in the summertime. I wasn't even taking classes. And he didn't even see me on the basketball court. He just saw me walking by. He said, "You look like the kind of player I knew I needed for my roster." And then he only found out later that I could actually play. So he was kind of blind guessing that I might be good at basketball. Luckily, he was right. Then when it came to playing pro, one of my teammates actually, he knew people who played pro ball overseas. So he knew about the overseas world, and he told me, hey, they have these events. You can go to one of these and basically showcase yourself. And if you're any good, then that can lead to your next opportunity. I didn't know anything. He knew. So I just happened to be on the same team as this guy. He's the one who put me onto that. And then as the internet continued to evolve, you get the early forms of social media, et cetera. I got introduced to network marketing or multi-level marketing, what people call it, when I was in college. That introduced me to the concepts of entrepreneurship and owning your own business, and a lot of concepts about personal finance, paying yourself first. You can't spend all your money on bills. These are kind of things that were not taught to me at home, nor were they taught to me in school. And I have a college degree in business, and they weren't teaching these things. So I started to learn these things on my own. Luckily, I come from a 2-parent household. My mother is in the education space. So she was very big on making sure her kids could read and write from a very early age. That's what got me into books, not only writing books, but reading books. So from reading books, I got a lot more knowledge than what I got from going to school, honestly.
That was incredible. I love the fact that the coach didn't even know you were a good player, but he saw the dedication for you being there, and he's like, I know I need a guy like that. So it worked out for him that you were good, but he was more interested. That there's I heard like CEOs and things talk about that too. They'd rather have someone with the right attitude and not the right skills, because he can always learn the right skills with the right attitude. So he was seeing you with kind of that incredible work ethic. But the most fascinating thing you just said is, when you'd only been playing 2 years and you thought, I want to play professional ball because it's something that I enjoy doing. And that's the key to successful life, right? Figuring out what you enjoy doing. So that's a lot of confidence for a young man. Where did that confidence come from? Your family, reading books? Like, where did that come from? Because that's really interesting. As a parent of a young boy, I want him to have that kind of confidence as a young man.
I think it may, looking back at where I was at that time when I said it, Lawrence, I think it was probably more ignorance than confidence. It was confidence, but it was ignorance, because I had no idea how I was even going to do it. This is the 90s, so it's not like I know who all the other players in the nation are who are in my age bracket. And it's actually good that, as they say, ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
So it was actually good that I wasn't able to see how all the other players in my age bracket were and how they were performing, because it might have discouraged me. It made me think, wow, wait a minute, there's 10,000 guys better than me. Maybe I won't make it in basketball. But because I can only see my neighborhood, I said, okay, it used to be 100 guys in the neighborhood better than me. Now it's only about 80 of them better than me. Next year, it'll be about 40 better than me. So I can see I'm getting better than them. So maybe I can make it. So the fact that I didn't know kind of fed my my naive confidence that I could go and make it happen as a basketball player. And I was just thinking to myself, okay, if I can just get on the basketball team, then I can start to get some more experience and I can play against players who have experience. One thing I noticed early in my playing days was that most of the players I was playing with have been playing longer than me.
Yeah.
But I was catching up. And I also noticed, Lawrence, interestingly enough, because basketball is the kind of sport you can practice by yourself. Yeah. I noticed that a lot of the players in my bracket were not coming to the park to practice. They would only come to the park to play. So it's kind of like you said, you come from the combat sports world. It's like if a fighter only comes to the gym to do sparring, but he never does any drills or works on footwork by himself, he's going to eventually lose to somebody who's always coming to the gym to do the drills. So I noticed none of them were practicing, even though they were better than me. So I figured, okay, if I just keep practicing, I'm eventually going to catch up to and surpass them if I just keep practicing, because they're not practicing at all. They just have experience over me. And I noticed the exact same thing when I finally made the high school team. Most of my teammates did not train on their own. When I got to college, none of my teammates trained on their own. When I played pro, most of my teammates did not train on their own. It was just people were at higher levels of performance, but most of them didn't take the time to do any work on their own volition. They only did what was required of them. And what I found is that in every space, we're not even just talking sports here, and not in just basketball, is that the people who put in the what we consider to be extra work, I don't consider it extra work. I consider it required work. Now, if you're going to be a pro, you have to be doing more than what everybody else is doing if you're going to beat them. Otherwise, this becomes a talent competition and you might not win. So I've always been a person who was willing to do what most people call extra work, but I didn't consider it extra. For one, I was already behind everybody, so it wasn't extra for me. It was catch-up work. I was behind. I was kind of like you missed school for a week. You got to do all the extra work to get your grade back up. And On top of that, I wanted to be ahead of them. So I figured, how can I get ahead of them if we're all doing the same stuff? I got to do a little bit more than what they're doing. So if we all have practice with the team 5 days a week, then I need to do 5 extra sessions so I can be getting that little bit of an edge, not only tangibly, but also mentally, knowing that I did it.
Great. That's it. What you just said there. I love it. I never thought about it that way, but it's exactly right. If you're not putting extra work in, then it does just become a talent competition, and you can't control how much talent you have. But we can all control our work ethic, and that implies to athletics. That implies to our marriage, our relationships, our professional career. It applies to everything in life. So I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, we can't control where we start or what natural gifts we have, but we can control the one thing that we can control, and that's our work ethic.
That's right. And just showing up every single day and doing the work is how I define discipline. And I tell that to audiences I talk to every single day. Show up every single day and do the work. And whenever people ask me, what's the number one trait, of all the things that you talk about and share, whether on the court or off the court, what's number one? The answer is always discipline. Easily discipline. And the reason why is because discipline is about showing up every day and doing that job. And the job is not going to be exciting every day. I don't care what you do for a living. Any job that looks glamorous from the outside, I guarantee when you get on the inside, it's not going to feel glamorous every day. Eventually, it's going to get tedious. It will get monotonous. And also, by the law of contrast, most people, almost everybody, if you ask them, do you want to be more disciplined? Almost everybody says yes.
Yeah.
But most people don't have the discipline. And most people are not willing to do what it takes to be disciplined, which is basically you got to follow a structure. And when you're following the structure, eventually things are going to get tedious and monotonous because you're doing the same stuff every single day. And most people simply don't have the discipline, for lack of a better term. They just don't have the makeup to show up and keep doing the same boring stuff over and over. Like I'm not a fighter professionally, but I do a lot of fight training now after basketball, and it's the same stuff over and over again. No, 1, 2, 1, 2. It's just the 1, 2. That's the whole thing. That's the whole game. And getting the footwork right. And a lot of people just don't want to do the fundamentals, which is why they end up faltering.
Yeah, that's so true. There's an old boxing saying, it takes 10 years to become a 10-round fighter. And because people used to watching, the highest level boxing, most fights are 10 or 12 rounds for championships. They don't realize that when pros start, it's 4-round fights. Then they work up to 6 rounds, then 8 rounds, then eventually 10 rounds. And it takes years and years of dedication. And when you were talking, I remember listening to you talk to somebody else, you were saying that you had this incredible unbroken streak of daily videos that you were doing. And you've had, a crazy mass on like over 30 million views on YouTube, that it wasn't gifted to you. You did that every single day. And I'm sure there were so many days where you're just like, I wish I could skip today, but you kept that discipline. And there's something special about people that say, I'm going to do something every single day for a long streak. There's so few people that do that in life.
Yeah, true. And to add on to what you said in the fighting thing, people don't realize how long a 3-minute round is until you get in the ring. All right, 3 minutes is a long time. It doesn't look like a long time when you're watching. When you get in there, you're like, man, when is the 3 minutes up? But anyway, when it comes to the content publishing, I remember when I decided to do that was around 2009, because this is when YouTube first started allowing you to make money from posting videos. So I figured, I go to the gym every day. Why not just put out a video every day? I wasn't sure I had enough ideas, but I ended up, coming up with a process to keep producing ideas and keep putting out content. But I never looked at it as, I wasn't even looking at YouTube as like a business thing for me. It was just, I'm just putting the material out because I knew there were a lot of players who wanted to learn the game. And I figured, okay, I can show you because I know it. I was getting people knowing my name. That was good enough for me. I didn't really care how much money I made from it. I never looked at YouTube as this is going to be my main way of making money. Never has been, never will be. And then eventually with the mindset piece, there was just more people I could serve. But I had already read Robert Kiyosaki 10 years before that. I read Tim Ferriss a few years before that, 4-Hour Work Week and Rich Dad Poor Dad, respectively. And when I read those, I'm thinking, how can I build a business that maybe I can use what now is becoming my social media presence, so my brand. I can use this for something, but I was never looking at it as I'm just going to park my car here. I think that's a mistake that a lot of people are making these days because they've grown up with this stuff and they're being enticed by the platforms themselves. Hey, build your business on our platform. And I always tell people that's not a business. It was on their platform. They can take it away from you. It's not yours. But I knew from the very beginning, this is never going to be the place that I plant my flag. I will use them, but they're not going to use me.
Dre, one thing that I really appreciate about reading your stuff is you'll do a post on Instagram and it's deep. There's a lot of wisdom in there. A lot of people they might hear like, oh, I'm going to try to do a video every day or do a post every day or whatever it is. But the stuff they're putting out is kind of bland and there's not much substance there. But yours is deep. Just thinking about that, you mentioned when you started, you said, okay, I'm going to try and do a video a day. And then you said, I'm not sure if I have enough ideas, but I'm just going to go. Obviously, by doing that, it forces you to build your creativity muscle and think about different things that you can explain in different ways with all the experience that you've had. And I think that's just so useful in life too. And I've noticed that just from me reading your stuff. And there's a couple of times I'm like, yeah, wow, that's a really profound point. And then you'll do another thing on a slightly different area. And again, it's profound again. Like I can really see that you've worked on that muscle for many years to develop that creativity and ability to express things in an eloquent way that it reaches out. And it's like, yeah, that's right. It is motivating. It's motivating for me even to read it. So I think that's really cool. And it says a lot about you that you've spent years honing these skills.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And there's two things to that. Number one is that I've gotten better at that the more I've done it. So kind of like what you just said. When I said I was going to put out a video every day, I didn't know if I had 365 ideas, let alone, I don't know how many videos I put out, and 15,000 on YouTube. I just figured I had about 30 days worth of material and let's see what happens after 30 days. And then I just kept combining stuff. I would read the comments, I would see the questions, and oh, there's the next idea, there's the next idea, there's the next idea. And it started to build on itself. As you said, there's the same thing when it comes to writing or any form of communication, is that once you start doing it consistently, the things that you're doing start producing the ideas for the next thing you should do.
Yeah.
So when you go in on a basketball court and you start showing people, here's how to dribble the ball between the right hand and the left hand, eventually you think, okay, well, what if someone's not good at dribbling with their left hand? Okay, there's a new idea. What if someone wants to dribble twice with their right hand? There's a new idea. What about dribbling behind your back? Oh, there's another idea. So when you do the thing, you start thinking of other things that people will need to know. If they're going to know this thing, they also need to know that thing. So in the marketing world, they talk about this. They say what problem does the current solved problem create? So basically, every time you solve a problem for someone, you create a new problem.
Yeah.
So for example, if I sell cars and you come to my dealership and I sell you a car, now I've created a new problem. Now you need insurance. All right, somebody has to sell you the insurance. Now you need the windows tinted. All right, now you need the floor mats. Now you need gas. All right, now you need a parking space for your car. Now somebody has to wash and detail your car. You have kids. Now you got to put a car seat in the back of the car. All right, now someone's going to have to do the tune-up on the car after you ride a couple thousand miles. All right, now you're going to need new tires for the car. Now you need a sound system for the car. So every time you solve one problem, you create a whole new set of problems. And marketers think like this because we're always thinking, especially in the space that I'm in, I create a lot of intellectual property. So intellectual property, every time I'm solving one problem for you, we're creating a whole new set of problems that probably I can solve that one too. Or I can pass you off to someone who can solve that problem. So solving one thing always leads to another thing. And the other thing is this guy named James Altucher. I don't know if you or people in your audience have heard of him, but James, I used to read and listen to his stuff a lot. And back in this time frame, around 2010 to 2015. And he talked about the idea muscle, which is what you were referring to. The idea muscle it's a muscle, is that if you continually force yourself to come up with ideas, even ideas that are bad, the idea muscle gets stronger and it gets better and faster at firing off ideas when you need them. So his thing was come up with 10 ideas a day and write them down. And you don't even have to be good. You don't even have to execute on them. But if you come up with 10 ideas a day, in a year, that's 3,650 ideas. I think a few of those ideas might actually be good and actionable. So I've always done that and come up with the ideas. I don't quite do as many as 10 as I used to, but I have so many. I come up with so many ideas that I'm pretty good at it now. And these days, you can also pass it off to some automation AI to help you out.
That is so true. And I remember James Altucher, I remember reading him talk about that creating ideas and exercising the muscle. And one of my biggest regrets when I was fighting professionally is I think that I didn't have the most physical talent, but I think I had a really good work ethic and I had a really strong mind. Like I think I pushed myself harder than most people around me. But the one thing I didn't do was work enough on my mental game. And it's like we're so used to, especially if you're an athlete, but even if you're not an athlete, most people have worked out and they know the feeling of like you work your muscles and then they repair and then they respond to the exercise and they develop and you become stronger. But people don't think about the all the other muscles, whether it's that you're talking about the idea muscle, which is so true. But what about just the muscle of doing uncomfortable things? Like I don't know about when you first started talking, but when you did your TEDx talk, someone could watch that and say Dre was a born speaker, but they don't know how long it took you to get there. And I haven't seen your early videos, but I'm sure they're a lot less, smooth than your videos today. You've developed all these different things. I think that's such a good way to go through life, is just trying to find out different ways that you want to grow and keep putting yourself in these uncomfortable situations day after day, week after week. And eventually it just becomes something that you're used to.
Yeah, exactly. The proverbial 10,000 hours sounds like what you're describing, is that you just keep taking that time and you keep doing it. Then it starts to feel like you were born that way. And so when it comes to things like playing basketball, I did not start off as a very good player, but by the time I was, 25 and I go to a gym and play with some random person, they would think that I was some kid who's been playing since I was 2. Like I was born with a basketball in my crib because it looked natural because I've been practicing so much. And it's the same thing when it came to the speaking. When I get on camera and do a live stream, or I get on stage and give a speech these days, people say to me, man, you're like a natural speaker. Well, it wasn't natural when I ran for class treasurer in 2nd grade and didn't win. It wasn't natural then. So it looks and feels like that. And then what I tell people is that when you're a professional at what you do, you make it look easy. And to you, it may even feel easy. And the reason why is because you've done the homework. I call it doing your homework, which is all the preparatory work that you do in the proverbial dark, so that when the lights come on and everybody's watching, it looks like this is just something you were born to do. And a lot of people tend to ascribe that trait to, especially to athletes, also to entertainers like singers and dancers. Like, man, these people are just naturally gifted in a way that nobody else is gifted. Some of us are that gifted. I'm sure you came across plenty of athletes who just had this natural ability, didn't even train as hard, but they were just really good. But a lot of us, that's not the case. It's just we've done so much of the work that you don't know about. Then when you see us, it seems like this just is easy, but it's not easy. The performance is easy, but the work is not.
Yes. Well, what about you mentioned discipline earlier, and I love Jacko Willink has that book, Discipline is Freedom. And I know with my own life, every night I go to bed, I know there's certain things the next day that are my non-negotiables. I know I'm going to do them. So it's great. I don't even think about them. Even at the time, the next day, I don't want to get up and get in my cold plunge first thing in the morning. And maybe I don't do jiu-jitsu in the afternoon, but I know it's in my head. I'm going to do it. And I don't even think about it. That's my personal discipline.
Right.
That's taken me many years to develop. I don't think I was the most disciplined as a young teenager. And I feel like every year of my life since then, I've got more and more disciplined. How do you think is that you can get so much from discipline? If someone's listening to this and their life's kind of chaotic and they don't have much discipline, they wish they were a bit more like you. Is there anything you could maybe talk about how to start going from completely disorganized to slowly building that discipline into the fabric of your days?
Yes. Number one, you need an anchor. Discipline anchors are a thing or things that you care about enough that you're willing to endure the necessary discipline in order to get it. So, for example, let's say there's a woman, she's about to get married. She's getting married in 6 months. And she wants to look beautiful in her wedding photos because it's the only time she'll get to take these photos. And these photos will be up on the walls of her house forever. And she needs to lose 30 pounds. Now, she's wanted to lose 30 pounds for years, but she's never been able to discipline herself to do it or to do the work necessary to lose the weight. But now that she has a strong enough reason, the anchor, she will now go hire a trainer. She'll stop drinking soda, stop eating, the little Debbie cakes and ice cream. And now all of a sudden she's going to do the stuff that the trainer tells her to do. Whereas the last 3 trainers that she hired, she didn't end up listening to them. And that's why she hadn't lost the weight. So sometimes you just need a strong enough reason. So you can call that the motivation. Motivation is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a great starting point, but you can't depend on motivation long term. So what motivation does is get you started. It's kind of like starting the ignition of your car. That's the motivation that starts the car, but discipline is what actually drives the car for the 50 miles between here and where you got to go. Can't depend on motivation for the entire trip, but motivation can be a great starter to get you going. And then the other thing is the structure. So let's just stick with the driving analogy, is that if you're trying to drive from here to somewhere else, then you may need some directions. You need the navigation. So the navigation is a structure that says make a left right here, stay on this road for 5 miles, and you're going to turn to the right. And it tells you exactly what to do and when to do it. And if you follow the structure, just like following directions in the navigation of your car, you're going to end up at your desired destination as long as you follow the instructions. So the structure tells you where to go, what to do, and how to do it. The motivation gets you started, and the discipline is what keeps you following the path and running the play, as we say, sticking to the script the way that you're supposed to. So everyone who is listening to this, number one, what do you care about enough to get disciplined and follow the disciplines that'll be given to you? Number two, what can be your motivation to get started? That can be something that usually maybe some form of emotional triggering or some hype up YouTube video that you like to listen to. Whatever gets you started is fine. And then number three, what structure are you going to plug yourself into such that as long as you follow that structure, you are going to get the desired outcome. The good thing about the structure is that these days there are plenty of people and entities that already have created structures to achieve pretty much anything that you want to achieve. So your job is just to look around and find out who's already offering it and which one of these am I going to plug myself into, because you probably have more than one choice. So pick the one you want to follow through with. I mean, it's like you could pick, there's 10 different trainers at the gym. Which one do you want to be your trainer? But they'll all train you. You'll lose 30 pounds with any one of them if you do what the trainer says. The difference is not trainer. The difference is you. Yeah. Every diet works, as they say. It's just the people don't work. So if everybody did what they were told to do, there would be no such thing as a diet. Everyone would just eat right, drink water, move their bodies, and there would be no such thing as the South Beach diet, the Atkins diet, the no-carb diet. They all work if you would just do what the diet says to do. So that's the difference, is just the person.
Yeah. That's so true. What about, so obviously now you're very successful, Dre, and you've figured out all these things in life, that like things like having good disciplines and good habits. Do you ever fall off your routine? And when you do, I'm 46 now and I'm not, a professional fighter or anything, but I try and keep that same discipline. But occasionally, I just want to, blow off my schedule and hang out with my 4-year-old son or something. And I'm trying to learn to not, it's really hard to even enjoy it because I have this inbuilt guilt in me. But I just wonder about someone like you. You're such a high achiever. Is there times where you fall off, and how do you deal with it psychologically to get back on your track, on your routine?
It's an interesting question. When it comes to, is there any particular aspect of life you're asking about?
I try to do some type of exercise every day. But, in a month of 31 days, there could be 1 or 2 where for whatever reason it doesn't get done. But I'm trying to not beat myself up over it. I'm trying to say, well, listen, I didn't get my afternoon workout in because instead I took my son to the park for 3 hours and I had a great time. And I'm trying to balance, like, so much of discipline and success in life is future gratification. But I'm at the age now where I've been delaying gratification for decades, right? So at some point you want to enjoy some of the fruits of your labor. So I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to balance, is how much, sometimes I'm a bit less disciplined now than I was, and I'm trying to enjoy it as opposed to beat myself up over it. But there's still certain things, like I hope as long as I can walk, I'm going to get up every day and get myself in the cold plunge, because I hate mornings and I hate the cold. So I think there's a lot of happiness in life when you start the day doing things you don't want to do. So there's certain things I want to do forever, but at the same time, I don't want to always be, I guess, delaying gratification with incredible discipline and kind of living a really monastic life. I want to enjoy myself a bit too. So I just wondered how you balance that.
But one thing is, I structure in the time when I'm not going to be doing the thing. So for me, I wake up and work out first thing in the morning every day. And then I will have the times in my day when, okay, I'm going to take this is the time with the kid. This is when the time that I'm going to be, I will schedule time. I'll take 10 minutes and scroll through social media, see what's going on. Here's the time where I'm going to check my email. So you can structure in and plan out the time that is actually the recovery or rest time or the do nothing time. At the same time, going backwards here in the conversation, I would say that you need to decide what your non-negotiables are, and those get structured in. So for me, I haven't played a pro sport in 10 years, but it's non-negotiable for me to go to the gym. It's non-negotiable. Monday through Saturday, I'm in the gym every day. Sunday, I won't go to the gym. I do a workout at home. I have yoga mat. I got a kettlebell. I'll do that at home. But that's the process always. Even if I was on vacation, I'm getting a workout in every single day. But that's just for me.
Yeah.
Other people have other non-negotiables that they have to do. So you have to decide what those non-negotiables are, get those in, and then everything else fits around that. Now, as far as falling off my disciplines, I have vices. I mean, I think my closest vice is probably sugar. I like, candies and stuff like that. But I told myself that I was going to stop getting them because I have a child who's around the age of your kid. And anytime I eat candy, then he's starting to ask for some. And at that age, I don't want him eating candy. But if I'm eating candy right in front of his face, I can't say you can't have it. Well, he says, why? I say, well, it's not good for you. But he's sitting there watching me eat it. So one of the things that I've done, one of my disciplines is I stopped eating the candy. So now if we're going past the candy store, he says, can we have some candy? I said, no, we're not eating candy. And he doesn't have a pushback because I'm not eating any. So it's actually helped me. So as far as anything else, no, I don't really feel like I do. I mean, I pretty much make my own schedule around how I want to live and how I want to operate. So maybe it's not as difficult for me as it would be for others. And as far as the working out specifically, that's just a huge part just for me personally, even outside of sports. So other disciplines, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Not really. And if there is anything, all I do is just make an adjustment. When I notice that something is kind of off, like I like to drink a lot of water. So if I drink too much water later in the day, then it ends up interrupting my sleep because now I got to get up, go to the bathroom. So I make sure I cut my water off by a certain time so that doesn't happen. If it does happen, then I make my adjustment. I say, okay, I drank water at 3 o'clock. That was too late. So now no more water after 2:30, no more. So I'm done for the day. So it'll be little things like that.
Gotcha. How's your, if you don't mind me asking, Dre, how old are you now?
I'm 43.
44. Okay. I just turned 46. So, you look incredibly youthful. You're obviously in great shape. I love working out every day. I get so much happiness from it, just the endorphins, that I just feel so much better. Something about every day just breaking a sweat just really helps my mood and everything else. But my energy levels are not what they were. I've got some injuries from, a couple of decades of abuse of the body. I've got some injuries I'm dealing with. Do you get a little down about growing older and having more aches and pains and not recovering like you used to as a former professional athlete? Or do you just take it in your stride and you accept life for what it is? Because you can't fight getting older, but as someone that's used to just a body that really performs and bounces back from hard exercise and noticing that the recovery is not quite what it used to be, I don't want to say it gets me down because I accept it, but it is a minor irritation. I'll say that.
Yeah, and good question. So for me, it's several things. For one, is that when I stopped playing sports, the thing for me is that my principle is that I'm always going to be in professional athlete shape. And by that, I don't necessarily mean game shape because most people, everyday person who goes to the gym has no idea what game shape looks or feels like. They wouldn't know it if they saw it. But I want to be in the type of shape that if I go to a regular everyday gym, a person in there sees me often, they assume I'm a professional athlete. So to give you an example, Lawrence, I've never been a fighter, but the gym that I go to, the people who go there think I'm a boxer because every time I go there, my hands are wrapped. I'm doing the drills. I've been trained. Yeah. So I know how to train it. They assume that I'm a boxer and I don't really talk to people. So I think they all think I'm a boxer, but I'm not. And the point is not to impress people, but to impress upon you that when you carry yourself a certain way consistently, people tend to they have an expectation. They think you're something that you might not even be. So when I walk around in this suit, nobody assumes I'm an athlete. But when I'm in a t-shirt and shorts, people assume I'm a ball player just because of my physique and the way I carry myself. And I'm saying all that to say this, that as we get older, I am not looking at somebody who's 27 and asking myself if I can keep up with him. A lot of 27-year-olds, I'm probably in better shape than him. But let's say my 27-year-old version of me, I'm not going to be able to keep up with. He has a lot more energy. He's working out 3 times a day. I'm working out 1 time a day. But the average 43-year-old, I would guess probably you, same person, same age group, average 46-year-old, you're probably in better shape than 99% of them. You're in the 99 percentile in terms of being in shape just by simply showing up consistently to the gym and just doing something every day. Even when you said you feel guilty when you don't do something. Well, most men feel like they're doing something crazy if they do something at this age bracket. So yeah. You still got the opposite problem than what most men have. And I talk to a lot of men in our age group, even younger, 35 and up. They have trouble working out and they got a gym right there in their house. So just staying in shape as we age is a big thing for me. I always want to be in that pro athlete shape. And a lot of times when I'm in the gym, people think I'm 10 years younger than I actually am. The other thing is, as far as the bouncing back, I never had any serious injuries as an athlete. I never tore anything or broke anything.
Wow.
The most you get, especially in basketball, you get like ankles. I never had serious ankle issues. It's really the knees because I was an explosive player. So I was an above the rim, no slam dunking guy. So if your knees start bothering you, then that affects a big part of your game. And I didn't really have any serious knee issues until it was near the end. And it wasn't even serious. It's probably, I might have tore a meniscus. I don't know. But it was late. It was so late, I didn't even go to do anything about it. And I still run to this day. Like I'll run 10Ks and things like that and beat these old men who are in my age bracket that I can destroy them. They're nothing. But as far as these days, I think the closest thing I've ever had is I've had some Achilles tendinopathy. So that happens just from a lot of running. And that basketball is a lot of running. And then when I'm running outside, I run 2 marathons. I run a bunch of 10Ks. I still run 10 to 20 miles every week. Wow. That starts to just beat up on the Achilles like that. But I can run through it. Like, I can still run a 7-minute mile, no problem. 7-minute pace mile, no problem, even with that. So that's the only thing with me. And then at the same time, another thing, Lawrence, is that I have already mentally shifted from professional athlete mode to businessman mode. So my biggest thing these days is I don't want to win any more athletic trophies or medals. I want to win business trophies. Like I want to do my success in a suit, not in a pair of gym sneakers. So I got a bunch of medals over there from running 10Ks and marathons, and I'm going to run one more this year. And I think that's it. I don't think I'm going to do any more. As far as the competitions, I know I can win them, but I really don't have anything else to prove because I know I can beat. The older I get, it's going to be easier and easier for me to win. Yeah. Because the other men in my age bracket, these weekend warrior guys, they're not competition to me. So the main thing I want to focus on is winning in the business world where you making all the money with your mind, not with your body. So that's the next level for me. As far as athletically, though, I'm still in pretty good enough shape. I don't have anything chronic. I know a lot of athletes get some chronic things, especially, I don't know when you started playing, but you probably started sports at a younger age than I started with basketball. So I don't have as many miles on me from the repetitive movements of a specific sport. Right. So that's another thing I probably have as an advantage.
Jay, when you were coming to the end of playing professionally, I'm assuming, because you're in such good shape now, I'm assuming you could have stretched that career out longer. What was the impetus for you to say, it's time for me to do something else?
Just comparing what I was going to have to do to keep playing basketball versus the prospects of what I had available in business. So I stopped playing when I was 33, and I definitely could have played till I was 40 if I was able to find the job opportunities, the employment opportunities. But again, coming from where I came from, I don't know how it is in the fight world, but in the basketball world, it always comes back to your pedigree. Where'd you start? And your pedigree being college. So I came from a Division III college. Most of the pro players come out of Division I. So they're always looking at where you came from because in the pro basketball world, they're judging you based on where you came from, regardless of what you've done since then, because they're figuring, okay, if this guy's talented, he probably went to a Division I school. I saw guys who played at Division I schools and didn't even play. They sat the bench for 4 years. They would get opportunities to play overseas just because they were on the team at a Division I school and they didn't even play. Whereas somebody who played at a school like mine and was a starter, you wouldn't get the same opportunity just because you played at a Division III school. So they're assuming you're just not that talented. So I'm saying all that to say that during my career, I had to continually keep selling myself and marketing myself to get the next job, the next job, and the next job. So when I was 33, I started to get some opportunities for the business world. Hey, here's some things you can do in business. I met someone who was already a full-time thought leader, I guess we can say. So she was coaching, consulting, writing books, speaking, and making a full-time income from it, which is exactly what I wanted to do next. And she was mentoring me and basically giving me the ropes, showing me the ropes and telling me what I can do. And I started thinking, do I want to keep doing this hustle for basketball, which I know I only have but so many years left, or do I want to pivot to, why don't we start doing this business thing, because this is my next thing anyway. So I could either squeeze a couple more years out of this basketball, in which I've already done what I did what I wanted to do, was I wanted to play pro and I wanted to have a career, not just say I played a year or two, but have a career. I had a career. Now I could pivot maybe into these other things because there's an opportunity here. I know business is my next thing. How about I just do that? On top of the fact, another thing that has to be mentioned here is that I was meeting I live in Miami. So I was meeting women at this time, Lawrence. I was a single guy. And you know what happened when you told them that you played basketball overseas? They would say, well, when are you going overseas again? And when you go, how long are you going to be there? And I lost a couple opportunities because of that, because I went overseas and the girl was like, well, I don't know when you're coming back. I'm not sitting around waiting on you. So I was considering that as well, because I'm like, man, I'm going to have a family.
Yeah.
It's only but so much time I got. So that was another consideration. How about I offer some stability to whoever I meet next so that they know I'm going to be around. I can't just say, hey, we met 3 weeks ago and I like you, you like me, but I'm about to go to Slovakia for 8 months. All right, just wait around for me. That probably wasn't going to work. So that was another thing I had to consider when it came to moving on. So then when I saw the business opportunity, I said, okay, I'm going to jump into the business thing. I got all these videos and products that I'm selling to basketball players, so I can still serve that audience. I can still make money from the products that I'm selling. Yeah. I'm not going to go and do the overseas thing again. And one more thing that must be mentioned, that when you're a professional athlete, especially on a team sport, you don't control the situation. You are essentially, you're an employee. I mean, you're kind of a contractor, but you're an employee. And you only play as long as the employer decides that they want you on the team. And when they don't want you, it's over. And when they do want you, you have to get on a plane and go. I didn't like the position because, again, I told you, I read Robert Kiyosaki when I was in college. I read Tim Ferriss around 2007, 2008. I always had the mindset. I had this independent streak when it comes to being an entrepreneur. My mindset is for entrepreneurship. I'm not a good soldier. I'm a very good soldier, but I'm more fit to be a general, if that makes sense, Lawrence. And being an athlete, you are at the behest and you serve at the pleasure of the boss, whoever that boss happens to be. And I knew my future destiny was to be the boss, not to be working for a boss. And when you're playing sports, you're hoping that somebody hires you. When you're an entrepreneur, you run the thing yourself. I knew that's where I was going next. So all of those things combined said, okay, let's move on and let's go do this business thing.
Kudos to you, Dre, for having the wherewithal to realize that I'm not going to keep doing this until the wheels fall off. I did it. I had a good career. I got what I wanted out of it. And now it's time to pivot and do something else. Because I think that's one of the hardest things. I'm lucky. I retired on a nice 3-fight win streak and I retired and go away. But you see a lot of these people have these unbelievable fight careers and then they just love it so much. They keep going. The reaction time's slow. The body's not what it was. The chin goes, and then they end their career on these huge losing streaks. And it's real. Some of them are, real legends. And it's really hard to see legends go out like that. And that's unfortunately the more common story. So kudos to you. That shows a lot of your intelligence that you realize, like, I got what I needed to out of this, and now it's time to move on.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Lawrence, how were you able to kind of discipline yourself to walk away from fighting? You won your last 3 fights. So obviously you're thinking I could probably win another one.
Yeah.
And why'd you stop?
That was the hardest thing, is I felt like all the fighting I did, I was like competing to 40 or 50% of my potential every time. Like, I know I'm so much better than I'm showing. And then I felt like the last 2 fights, it finally came together. And I was like, it took me so many years to get to this level. That's what's so difficult, is you walk away finally when everything's coming together, and it's taken, a decade or 2 to get there. So I think that was the hardest thing. But for me, I had too many friends who I really cared about their opinion. They just said, you've proved you can do this. You're a smart guy. You're in your mid-30s. Just don't risk the brain damage. Because I won the Chicago Golden Gloves a decade before I retired. So I was getting head trauma for a long, long time. So a lot of the people that cared about me, eventually I listened to them and I thought, I do care about my brain and the head trauma. But I got to be honest, Ray, I don't know if I would have that discipline if I was in a sport with less head trauma. So that's why I give you so much credit for knowing when to walk away. And it's like everything. It's like you see these really successful people in business and they're starting all these companies and they're so successful, but then they just get into bad relationship after bad relationship because they're fundamentally not matched well with these people, but they have the mindset like, no, if I just work harder, I can make it work. And one of my best friends is a serial entrepreneur that was in the worst relationship for about 7 or 8 years. And everyone, it broke all our hearts just to see him getting abused by this woman that they were so uncompatible with. And finally he ended it, and now he's happily married. He just had a son. So you see, but I see that story a lot with very successful people in business, and they don't know, like, it's one of the hardest things is to say, I'm not compatible with this person, I'm gonna walk away. Or I got what I wanted to out of this 9-year pro career. I traveled the world, I had a great time. Now it's time to pivot to something I can do longer. Like, that takes such a skill. So I guess that's what I'm so impressed, is that you had the wherewithal to see that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, I mean, walking away from something like playing a pro sport, because it's a job that very few people get a chance to do. You get paid, you get to travel, everybody knows who you are. It's a a much more fun job than being an entrepreneur. I love being an entrepreneur, but being an athlete was a lot easier. And yeah, it's very much hard to walk away. It's another thing that they kick you out. There's another thing when you're choosing to walk away.
Drew, what about so a lot of people, I come from Europe, and in Europe, just because Europe is the size of the US. So I know a lot of people that haven't left the US in a long time. I know people that don't even have a passport, because you can go to Colorado skiing, you can go to Hawaii, you can go to Florida, you can go to New York. America is such a big place. But there's so many cultures. Like, what was it like? Like, you come from a very educated family, like you said, you were a big reader. Your mom was an educator. What was it like when you were in Europe, just getting exposed to all these countries that most Americans couldn't even tell you where Slovenia or Slovakia are? So you're getting these experiences.
Right.
What was it like to go from Philadelphia to living in these European countries?
It was really fun for me. I loved it. So I often would hear from athletes when I was playing, because I would write a lot about playing overseas. So I get athletes reaching out to me, asking all kinds of questions. And many of them would say, well, I'm going to be homesick when I go overseas. The players who are from, let's say, New York, and they would go to college in New York because they didn't want to be away from their families.
Yeah.
I never had that problem. I don't know if that's some child psychology stuff, how much attachment you have to your parents, but I never had that issue. I wanted to get away. I wanted to go other places. I saw California on TV. I saw Miami. I wanted to go see those places. And when I got a chance to go overseas, I was excited to go just to see. So it was surreal just walking around. I remember the first place I went was Lithuania, Kaunas, Lithuania. And it was just so surreal walking around, like with euros in your pocket and little coins, and seeing these people who mostly don't speak English, but they're all looking at you with fascination because they've seen tall black guys on TV. So they first time seeing you in person, and most of them are not speaking English, but the kids are running up to you wanting to take a picture. They don't even know you, but they just want to take a picture of you because they saw people like you on TV. So they assume you must be somebody. They don't even know if you play basketball. And that was amazing. So for me, I loved going to the other places and seeing all the other cultures. And even around that time, so I started playing in 2005, but even by that time, the younger people, like people under the age of 30, almost all of them spoke English, because what a lot of Americans don't know is how impactful our culture is on other cultures all around the world. They listen to all of our music, they watch all of our popular stuff. And now with social media, we're just exporting all these things that we're doing all around the world. And it is very influential is the word I'm looking for. Very influential. So a lot of people, when I was overseas, they were under 30 and they had gone to college. They spoke fluent English. So I could talk English to any of the younger people. And now, that was 2005 to now. So now many of these people are older. So a lot of people are able to speak English. You can go communicate. And now on our smartphones, I mean, you can say something in English and hold your phone up and it'll translate it to Polish or something and say the same thing to the person that you're trying to talk to. So nowadays, a lot easier to get around. Back then, you had to walk around with the dictionary in your pocket, or you had to actually learn how to say the words, which is revolutionary for some people to even think about. But I tried to learn some words in almost every place I went.
That's so awesome. You just reminded me. So when I graduated college, I stayed to do an MBA. And in the summer break, I got a job teaching English in Moscow. And I grew up in London, like you said about US exporting culture. I grew up watching all the US movies where it was like America was the good guy and it was the midst of the Cold War. So Russia was the bad guy. And I show up in Moscow. Right. I'm 21. I don't know what's going on. People were so nice to me because the young generation were just so curious about the West because they had been exposed to it was just after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they were just so friendly and curious, and it wasn't I did okay with the girls as a young man because they were very friendly, but the guys too, they just wanted to talk to you because you're not from there. Right. And it was such an eye-opening experience. Right. Is that don't believe the hype. Like, we live in a very politicized world where, like, this group is the enemy or that group's the enemy. But I'm a big believer in most people in every country of the world, regardless of if you like their government or not, are nice people. And most people just want the same things. And that was such an eye-opening experience for me. I'll never forget it. So you just reminded me of some of those memories. That was 23 years ago, but it's just so true. It's like, I can only imagine you don't look like I guess I could have fit in for a typical Russian guy. You don't look like the typical Lithuanian guy, Right. So that must have been amplified even.
Right, exactly.
But that's so cool. Well, Jay, we don't have too much longer, but I did want to ask you one more thing. You said something absolutely fascinating, and it's something I've really been thinking about just recently. And it was about your son and the sweets. And I realized that having a kid because it's not what they see you doing. Like you said, if he sees you eating the candy, he's going to want the candy. You don't want to give him candy. I'm the same with my son. I try not to give him any sweets because he's too young. He doesn't really know what it is yet. And the best hack for being your best self is to be a parent. It's like this thing that it makes you want to be your best self, because it's not what you tell your kids that they're going to listen to. It's what they see you doing. So when they see you doing all your disciplined routines and being so successful and working so hard, and you didn't write one book and say I'm done. I think you've written something like 30 plus books, and that's so incredible. Like you live this life, and that's going to be what the kids see. It's not what we tell them. It's what they see us doing every day, day in, day out. So I think that's something I've just realized recently. I'm like, man, it's beautiful. It gives me so much inspiration to be more disciplined and to be my best self, so that they actually see me living that way. Because I know it's not what I say, it's what they see me doing that they're going to really internalize.
Yeah, absolutely. As they say, kids don't do what you say, they do what you do. So whatever example you set, that's pretty much what they're going to follow. I agree.
Awesome. Well, Dre, this has been such a pleasure. I'll put a link to your Instagram. I know your website is drebaldwin.com. Your content is everywhere. And I just want to say personally, obviously you've lived up to the hype, but I find you so inspiring, because I come across so many people who are coaches because they can never actually achieve anything. And you are in the 1% of the 1%. Someone that's actually, you do what you talk about things, and then you actually walk the walk. You really do. And the fact that you're never satisfied, you really are trying to be your best self in all these different areas of life, whether it's parenting, whether it's an author, a speaker, a coach, a mentor, everything you do is so authentic. So I'll give you the last word, Dre, but I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. And you really, you live up to the hype, my friend.
Well, very much appreciated, Lawrence. And I appreciate you having me here on your show. And the last thing I'll say to the audience is that we all have a game. Your job is just to figure out what game you're in, develop the skills so that you can perform in that game, and then produce results. And when you produce the results that you and the people you serve want, then you get the rewards that you want. And I think that's the reason we all get up and work every day. So that's what working your game is all about. So I appreciate you sharing your audience, appreciate you sharing your platform.